So this evening we'll be looking at the Askaris of the British Empire, and to kind of start the discussion, the First World War, or the Great War as it were, began between 1914 and ended in 1918. But I want to kind of take us a little bit back to kind of give a bit of a context in terms of how were these people in Africa involved in the war in 1914, really. And before, there's been a lot of European influence or conquest, as it were, and scrambling amongst each other in terms of gaining territories, creating colonies in Africa and other parts of the world. And that actually went on for some time. And then in 1884, the European nations decided to kind of resolve this issue in a conference in Berlin in Germany, and they kind of said to each other, look, why are we kind of fighting amongst ourselves over territories? Let's kind of sit down really over this table and kind of discuss how we share these territories and these regions. And that was actually what happened in Berlin. So in Berlin, they sat down and they kind of carved out the continent. Yeah. And so this is how, at the Berlin Conference, the continent looked like. And so you had quite a lot of areas where the French were in control, as in French West Africa. The blue colors shows you the areas where, you know, the British Empire covered, and you can see the green mainly where the German, which was actually the German colonies, and a few Portuguese colonies. So this is what it kind of looked like by 1914, effectively. This is actually possibly a good comparison that allows you to see both of the maps together. And so when the war itself started, it was kind of very easy to be able to recruit the local men into the army because the administration was already there. The structure was already there to be able to do that. Taxes were already being collected, and there was effective administration to be able to kind of do that. Tanzania and so on and so forth. They established what they call the King's African Rifles on the eastern part of Africa. And so the King's African Rifles was actually the biggest battalion of the African army that they actually had. And that was established in about 1902 until about 1960s when these countries began to become independent. The combination of the West African Frontier Force in the west and the King African Rifles in the east was actually called the British Allied Forces. So there was the West African Frontier Force and the King African Rifles in the east of Africa, both of them deployed into different areas to fight the Germans. And they combined were called the British Allied Forces. Again, this is a section of the burglars actually sounding their farewell push to send a couple of officers away, and these are part of the 3rd Battalion of the Nigerian Regiment. I've already mentioned that the West African Frontier Force included quite a lot of regiments from West Africa, and here they are obviously, as you can see, about to kind of disembark and to be deployed against the Germans in the area of Namibia as it is today. Again, this is just another example. In this particular image, the Governor General of Nigeria, Sir Frederick Lugard, at that particular time is now addressing. Now, apart from the men who were actually involved and recruited as soldiers who fought in the war, there were a lot of other men and women who participated either as spotters or carriers, who carried the heavy weapons, who cleared the roads, who cleared the bushes. And their involvement was almost as actually crucial as those who actually fought in the wars. It is almost impossible for us to kind of know exactly how many there were. It is estimated, for example, that about 100,000 of them died due to illness, exhaustion, or malnutrition during this period. But because accurate records were not kept, we do not know exactly, how many there were. But they did the tough work in clearing, in carrying the heavy weapons, in ensuring that the process of the supplies kept running and the machinery of the war was actually run smoothly. And so we'll take a quick look at some of the porters and the carriers. And in this particular image, you can actually see there's a lorry right at the end here. But obviously these are the men that are actually clearing the road, ensuring that that lorry can pass through and can actually make the supplies available to the men. Again, this is another example of some of the porters. As you can see, they're carrying the weapons. The commanders obviously waiting and instructing them. And as they are going into this particular location, they would also be carrying these weapons through a particular swamp as they get to the other end of it. So they ensure that the soldiers were supplied with everything that was actually needed in the war front as well. Here it is actually showing us an image of the involvement of the women who were actually involved in supplying the grains to the troops. There isn't a lot of information about women in the First World War, but this obviously shows us that they were actually quite vital to ensuring that there was enough food. And this is almost like a kind of marketplace where you can see them carrying the grains and obviously making the food available to the men who were actually at the war front in Africa. Because from the map that I've actually shown you, the territories of the British, the Germans, and the French were actually next to each other. So the same fighting took place in Africa as it was actually taking place in Europe. And so I mentioned earlier on the Togoland campaign, where Sergeant Grunty was involved in the beginning, and the Togoland campaign was one of the campaigns where the British and the French army tried to invade the German colony of Togoland to kind of gain access to vital resources as well as territory in terms of control. And so this took place between the 9th and the 26th of August in 1914. So there was actually, and then the Cameroon campaign, because apart from Togoland, the Cameroon was also a German colony, which was next to the Gold Coast and other areas where the British were. And so there was actually fighting in a place called Tepe, with the opportunity to want to kind of gain control over access in terms of bridge and so on and so forth. And so for about 2 years, the British forces as well as the German forces collided. And in this picture, you can actually see some of the Askaris watching over another German wounded soldier. In total, there were 166 decorations that were awarded to Africans. Sometimes it is difficult to find the full details, as you can actually see in this particular image. This soldier is obviously being decorated, but we have all the full details of the acting governor, Jarvis, that is presenting him with the medals, but we do not have the name of the soldier that is actually being awarded. But towards the end of the war, especially like I've said, in the area of the West Africa, which is now Namibia, the Germans occupied that place, and there was a lot of clashes between them and the British soldiers in the other part of Southern Africa. Now the German general, Dr. Vorbeck, was very skilled in guerrilla tactics. He had a small group of army, but was able to use them so effectively that he would actually destroy places with raw. And it took quite a while for the British to kind of be able to kind of find him. And he did that so cleverly that he was able to even occupy a larger army of the British soldiers. So that it went on and on and on. And so when the war had actually ended here on the 11th of November, which is the Armistice Day, it did not end in Africa until the 25th of November, when they were able to find him. And it was only then that he surrendered his army after the war had already ended here on the 11th. And because of that, some commentators have already said that the first shot and also the last shot of the war actually ended in Africa, because though it ended in Europe on the 11th, it took until the 25th for Vorbeck to surrender his army to the British, because they couldn't find it. And that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation.